They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everybody. I'm Lou Ruggieri. That's Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking a little time out of your day to spend it with us. We are going to try to make it worth your while. You can follow us along iHeartRadio podcasting app, Spotify, YouTube. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Everything up till Twitter, we are at the Benchwarmerz podcast. Benchwarmerz with a Z. Our Twitter handle is at the BW Pod. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and we have a brand new platform. We are now officially part of the Amazon podcasting lineup. So, congrats to us, Jose. Good job. We made it to yet another level, leveling up slowly.
Yep.
We have quite a show for you today for our debut on Amazon podcast. Lots of football, tons of football. We do have to talk some NBA not have to talk, but we want to talk some NBA playoffs. It's coming down to the end here, and the heat is on. That's a little foreshadowing for you. So next hour we have some our new favorite game, Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break. We're going to go through some highlights and lowlights of the football season and see what we should worry about or not worry about whatsoever. And then finally, in the last part of the second hour, we have Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is, where we talk about some of our picks and our record thus far, and then we have to look ahead to week 3 already. So, but first, we have to talk Sunday, Bloody Sunday, as you aptly put earlier today, Jose. The injuries in week 2. I mean, I kind of had a feeling, I think like a lot of people with no preseason, I think we're seeing the need for a preseason after week 2, and man, I hate weeks like this. It feels like every season there's one week where it's just a slew of injuries that it's so heartbreaking. I mean, I don't even know. I guess the top injury is Saquon Barkley, torn ACL, and he's out for the season. That's a travesty, and I hate to see him get hurt because now this is 2 years in a row he's been hurt. And honestly, I kind of think that maybe I'm curious what your opinion is on this. I think maybe this could be a blessing in disguise for Saquon Barkley, truthfully, because the Giants they're just not doing anything. I mean, they're not good enough to win. So, I'd hate to see Barkley with another season of mileage on him. And granted, I mean, his knee's torn up, so that's not good either. But maybe overall, with a year off of rest and rehab and recovery, he might come back next year and be better.
Well, that's certainly a possibility, but I always want to see, just to echo what you're saying, you never want to see these players get injured. You kind of hate to see the NFL come down to a battle of attrition, which it often does happen that way. I would rather see Saquon Barkley out in the field. Honestly, I think this team needs to build some chemistry together. You have a young quarterback in Daniel Jones, young offensive line, young receivers, young running back. I think the best thing for this team would actually be to get out there and play and maybe win 3 or 4 games, 5 games, like kind of learn it. A couple weeks ago we talked about getting that culture of losing in the Philadelphia 76ers locker room. You don't want that to happen in any locker room, and I worry about now with no Saquon Barkley. I just don't know what to expect from the Giants other than more terrible play. So it's not a good thing at all in any way.
Yeah, Deion Lewis to save the day, but probably not. Yeah, unfortunate. And so from one running back to the next, the other highlight or low light, I guess, Christian McCaffrey, an ankle injury, not quite as severe as Saquon's, but he's out 4 to 6 weeks, and he said that he wants to come back sooner. And honestly, if anybody can do it, I think Christian McCaffrey can come back sooner because he is, at least in part, superhuman. So,
yeah, he's a beast, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him questionable in 2 weeks, basically, and the team just say, you know what, we're going to give you another week. Hold off. In this situation, I'm being a little contradictory here. I kind of think it might be a good thing for them, just because I really, really want the Panthers to draft Trevor Lawrence. I really want them to have the number one overall pick. I just think you have Robbie Anderson, you have Curtis Samuel, you have DJ Moore, you'll have Christian McCaffrey. If they can find a way to get that number one pick and get, assuming that he's as good as advertised anyway, but get Trevor Lawrence, I think that would just be amazing. And then, assuming, I guess Drew Brees is going to retire, but in that division, you'd have Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, and Trevor Lawrence. I think that's exactly what we need.
It's past and future, yeah.
Yep.
No
offense to Teddy Bridgewater, by the way.
Bridgewater played well. I mean, he's
okay.
he's more than serviceable. I don't think I think his ceiling is somewhat limited, but he's good. He's just not great. And that team in general just they need some work. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to stink badly enough to maybe get that number one overall pick, but who knows? It's possible. And then now, so as a team, the 49ers, we'll just call them the Niners. I mean, they're fours or something. I don't know. Half their team is decimated. And a lot of this actually, I don't know if you saw it or not, but a lot of it had to do potentially with the field at the Jet Stadium. There was a lot of complaints about the turf being sort of, I don't know if it was kind of loose or weird. There was some issue where a few of 49ers were complaining. And, I mean, given the list of injuries that they sustained, I mean, I think that some of those complaints were valid.
Especially with the leg injuries as well, right, that you're talking about.
So Jimmy G, high ankle sprain, he's day-to-day, which is a good sign. I mean, he was limping around a lot in that game, but, Jimmy G on one leg is still better than the Jets. Raheem Mostert sprained MCL week to week. Hopefully he comes back soon. Tevin Coleman is sort of another knee injury. It's kind of week to week, I think, with him. I'm not sure what the prognosis is. The big
they
one,
say he's going to be out multiple weeks, so we'll see.
Okay, so we'll see what that means. Solomon Thomas and Nick Bosa, torn ACLs, both out for the year, and that's especially Nick Bosa. I mean, that's crushing.
And you already have a hobbled George Kittle. He's may come back in week 3.
Sherman's on IR.
This, to me, basically, and it takes the team from where I had them as winning the Super Bowl to now. I think that they maybe can become a wild card team and maybe get lucky and make a run and possibly win one playoff game. That division, it's way too good to be falling behind. You've got the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals all at 2-0, all clicking on all cylinders, all looking healthy. And here we are. We're going to have to be signing guys off the street. I will say that I like when injuries happen early in the season as opposed to later, but this is not good for the 49ers.
No, I mean, two of their three-headed monster are down for the count. So Jerick McKinnon, who coincidentally enough was injured the last 2 years in a row, is now the only really starting running back for them. So, but it seems like in the Shanahan offense, though, they can kind of plug and play just about anybody. So I wouldn't be surprised to see C.J. Anderson come off the couch and run for 100 yards like he did with the Rams 2 years ago.
I mean, for the 49ers, to me, it's just about staying, just chipping away, right? Next week, you get the Giants.
Right.
No disrespect to the Giants, but that's a game that you probably should still win, or you at least have a chance to win. So just go 1 week at a time. They have a soft early season schedule. Maybe they can kind of hold the fort until the cavalry comes back. Yeah,
I mean, they're going to need some reinforcements. I mean, hopefully they can make some good free agent signings or pick people up off the waiver wire or something. I don't know what they're going to have to do. I mean, Shanahan's a pretty smart dude, so if anybody can figure it out, I think he's done a lot with not too much. I mean, he's got some talent, but he's definitely proven that he is a good football mind. The other just list of injuries keeps going. Tyrod Taylor for the Chargers, sort of a weird chest injury. He was having trouble breathing pregame, and he ended up going to the hospital after the game. And there's no real definitive answer on this. And I'm very tempted to say that this might be a season-ending injury for Tyrod Taylor, not necessarily because of the injury itself, but in that sort of Wally Pipp kind of motif where he just gets supplanted by Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's good. He's real good, and he looked real good I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure Tyrod's getting that job back.
yeah, he looked excellent against one of the best teams in the NFL, if not the best team in the NFL, and the Chiefs. I think he averaged 14 yards per throw. He had a touchdown pass. He ran in a touchdown. That offense, I mean, from week 1 to week 2, just looked so much more explosive. I would. He said, head coach Anthony Lynn says that Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starter when he's healthy. To me, that's a fireable offense. You got to keep you got to keep your best players on the field. I know that early in the season, off season, we were saying it might be best for him to rest, but the problem is in the NFL, you can't throw years away. Like if you have a chance to compete, you kind of have to go after it. So
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, if Herbert didn't play well or he looked overwhelmed, I think then yeah, you would hurry up and get Tyrod back in there. But I mean, he helped took the Chiefs to overtime. I mean, that's pretty good.
yeah,
So let's see, Devontae Adams on the Packers, hamstring injury, he's day to day. Cortland Sutton, shoulder injury, he's out for the year. That's devastating for the Broncos.
and they just lost Von Miller for the entire year the week before. So that's just, I mean, the Broncos went from a young promising team that maybe could make some noise to.
And Drew Lock is hurt. Drew Lock hurt his shoulder. He's out 2 to 6 weeks.
Yep.
That's not good. Your number one wide receiver and your starting quarterback are down for the count. Not good. Not good at all.
Philip Lindsay's injured as well. So
yep. That's a shame. It's unfortunate, but Cam Akers for the Rams has a separated rib cartilage, which just sounds gruesome. But he's only listed as day to day, so maybe it's not as bad as it sounds. But that sounds like something I never want to experience. I will say, just thinking about this sort of as on a tangent, I had this thought watching the Rams game. I hope that Cam Akers is sort of the end of a cautionary tale for signing running backs long term in Todd Gurley. You know, after they give Todd Gurley more money than any running back ever, and then they had to let him go, and now all of a sudden, you know, Cam Akers, along with the rest of that stable of running backs, I mean, they look fine. They're doing real well.
Yeah. They look fine. I will say that I do think some running backs are worth it. Zeke is the guy who comes to mind. But you know, you are right. Sometimes guys get injured and guys get hurt. I do think there's some guys who are worth it though.
Yeah. Finally, Paris Campbell for the Colts, knee injury. His status is unknown. I saw a headline earlier that said he did not tear his ACL, so I guess that's good. But there's no prognosis as of this recording. So that is a litany of injuries in 1 week of football. That's a lot. So that's the news, the top news of the week for sure. Second to that, so next bit of news, the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know. I know that people are praising the Cowboys, and I know Zeke, in his post-game interview, said, you know, we battled back and it was great. And, you know, it seemed surreal at first. They had 4 fumbles in, I think, the first quarter, and they lost 3 of them. They only recovered 1. This to me, you know, I'm glad that they won, I guess, because it's a great victory. But there's no reason. You should be down 21-0 in the first half, in the first quarter. It just seems like they dig themselves a hole, and then they kind of have to battle back, and it's just. I don't think that this is quite the win that everybody's making it out to be.
Well, listen, a win's a win in the NFL, right?
Yes.
We were a week away from calling for Mike McCarthy's job, kicking Dak Prescott out of Dallas, saying Ezekiel Elliott's terrible player, just completely burying this team. And they did play poorly to start the game. I think you're going to see a lot of ugly play from a lot of teams this season to start the year with no preseason, no off-season training camp. You're going to see a lot of this. How many teams could just stay on the floor there? Hey, you know what? We're down 27-10 or 26-10, whatever it was. This game is over. We just can't compete. And they battled back, and they won a game that they shouldn't have won. And I would think you could go through a lot of teams that have won championships or made deep playoff runs and find a game or two on their schedule that they won that they probably shouldn't have won. I actually think it's the sign of a really good team when you find a way to win when you play like trash.
I agree, but I put some of this on the coaching too, because okay, first fumble, fine, whatever happens. Second fumble, hey guys, maybe hold on to the ball a little better, because now we have two. Third fumble, how are you not preaching anything but keep your hands on the ball? Don't let people knock them. I mean, they were obviously kind of targeting these fumbles. I don't know what they saw on tape or whatever, but obviously it was working. And then the fourth time, come on, I mean, that's crazy. That's just, I don't know, that shows kind of a lack of concentration and a lack of awareness to me. And, I don't know. Maybe it was Dak Prescott's post-game cowboy hat that had me kind of off, because he looked very silly, where he looked like a country singer. And it just, I don't know, it bothered me. I don't know. I'm glad Zerline did, Legatron proved that he's worth the money they paid him, but I don't know if this is a good thing for the Cowboys.
Well, I do think that in back-to-back weeks, well, first of all, getting a win is always a good thing. But in back-to-back weeks, the Cowboys' defenses look questionable to me. That's the takeaway. I thought early in the Rams game, the Cowboys looked a little bit like you could move the ball on them.
Yep.
And then, I mean, obviously you're getting short fields on fumbles and things like that. But Matt Ryan threw 4 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley was tearing them up, and Cowboys' run defense is not very good. I mean, they definitely miss Leighton Vander Esch and Sean Lee. So I'm not sure that they definitely don't have an elite defense.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They're going to win that division because the Eagles are terrible. So, but we can get to them later.
Yeah, we'll get
but
to
I just want to give a chance. Every time I have a chance this season, I'm going to take it. I want to highlight Dak. 450 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 3 rushing touchdowns. There's about 5 quarterbacks in the NFL who can replicate that stat line, and the Cowboys have one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. They ended, I guess all's well that ends well, but it seems. I hope that this isn't a trend where they kind of fall behind big and then have to kind of rally back. Yeah. The other game that stuck out in this week, the Seahawks defeating the Patriots, and wow, I don't know if you watched this game, but the Seahawks look unbelievable. I mean, Russell Wilson is just somehow he's on another level. And honestly, Jamal Adams might have been the best player on that field in that game.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Jamal Adams. I'm going to take the L here. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a difference on their defense, and it shows how little I know, because he's been a tremendous difference maker for them. But I'm actually starting to feel like the Seahawks are not only the best team in the NFC, they're head and shoulders, like way better than any other team in the NFC, and might be on that upper echelon right there with the Chiefs and the Ravens, in my opinion. So, yeah, I've been thoroughly impressed. Russell Wilson, 9 touchdown passes, 1 interception this season, and only 11 incomplete passes in 2 games. 9 touchdowns, 11 incomplete passes.
That's ridiculous. Wow, that's a crazy stat.
Yeah, he's great. The Seahawks are great. They have championship pedigree. They have a championship head coach. It kind of looks like early season that it's coming together pretty well for them right now.
And, DK Metcalf in year 2, I mean, he was abusing the reigning defensive player of the year, Stephon Gilmore. DK Metcalf is built like Calvin Johnson. I mean, he's like 6'4", 230. He runs 4.4. He is a man among boys on that field. And, man, he was sticking it to Stephon.
I just don't know how you're supposed to guard him. Like, I feel, I guess we could jump on Stephon Gilmore, but it's like, damn you, Stephon, for not being 6'5" and running a 4.3 40. Like, he's a freak of nature athletically. And, it's going to happen that way. You go one-on-one with one of the best quarterbacks in the world, you're going to get beat sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it was an impressive game. Cam Newton played. I feel like Cam played pretty well. Julian Edelman had a game, man. 8 receptions, 179 yards. I mean, that's good for him. N'Keal Harry showed up. Interesting. Some Damiere Byrd. I didn't even know who he was until he started catching passes. And then there was sad moment where James White, I guess, was a scratch because of a pretty bad tragic thing that happened to his parents. His parents got in a car accident, and his father did not survive, unfortunately. So our condolences to James White. I think from all accounts, it sounds like he's a pretty good dude, and that's very sad. But yeah, Russell Wilson, 21 of 28, 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns.
Just quickly, I just want to touch on Cam Newton and the Patriots. I feel like just offensively, they look really like they may not have won this game. I mean, it was in Seattle, so I want to factor that in as well. But I feel like the Patriots look pretty good on offense and on defense. They're going to be a formidable team this season in the AFC. I think they're kind of in that next tier in the AFC after the Chiefs and the Ravens. I kind of think they're right there with the Bills, I guess, and the Steelers. I feel like they're better than I would have expected them to be with Cam Newton. He's playing very well.
Cam, by the way, with those, what do you have, 2 rushing touchdowns, I think? He passed O.J. Simpson and Herschel Walker on the all-time rushing touchdown list, which is
funny.
Bananas. And so that actually puts him 46th all-time right now and moving up. The only active players above him, Mark Ingram is 1 spot below, shockingly, which I was very surprised. LaShawn McCoy is at 29 with 73 touchdowns. Frank Gore, 79 touchdowns. He's at 21. Marshawn Lynch, I guess technically is playing. He's at 85. And then all the way at number 4, Adrian Peterson has 111.
I can't believe that Frank Gore only has 79 touchdowns. I just would have felt like he had more than that. All right.
Well, he's third all-time. He's third all-time in rushing yards.
Yeah. Yeah, I just would have felt like he would have accidentally fell into the end zone a few more times than that. Yeah. But yeah, what do I know?
Yeah, but yeah, the Patriots. The Patriots look good. Cam, made some questionable decisions, and I'm not sure. He sort of lost a little bit of that magic that he had in the first game. I mean, he played well. He played well, but a couple of those decisions he made were not very good ones. And it seemed like maybe it was the absence of James White. I mean, they just seemed like they were kind of missing sort of that short game, which would account. That would make sense if it was James White missing in action. So next order of business, Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, Steelers, Titans, Cardinals, Rams, Seahawks, Packers, and Bears are all 2-0. Jose, who to you stands out the most among that group? I'll read them again. Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, Steelers, Titans, Cardinals, Rams, Seahawks, Packers, and Bears. Who sticks out the most to you?
So if it's okay, I'd like to pick 2 teams because I couldn't decide. But my number 1 team is the Cardinals.
Okay.
They look explosive on offense, and I think in the NFL today you have to be able to put up points to keep up. You can't just be all defense, and they may not have the greatest defense, but man, I think they can score with just about anyone in the NFL, and I think they're going to be an exciting team to watch. And then on the opposite side of the ball, the Steelers, their defense looks dominant. Their offense looks competent, not great, but good enough. They're going to be a scary team to deal with down the stretch as well.
Yep. I think out of those, the Rams, to me, being 2-0 are sort of surprising. I mean, they were 9-7 last year, but it seems, they destroyed the Eagles. And, that was just, I felt like that was almost a statement game. I know the Eagles are kind of banged up a little bit, but the Rams just kind of look like they're starting to put it all together. And aside from them, the Bills at 2-0, granted, they haven't beaten great teams, but I mean, Josh Allen is getting better, and he's dangerous. If he starts getting to be a more accurate passer, he's going to be a real problem for the AFC East.
Yeah, Josh Allen looks great so far to start the season. No questions about that.
So on the flip side of that, the Panthers, Falcons, Lions, Vikings, Eagles, Giants, Jets, Dolphins, Broncos, Bengals, and Texans are all 0-2. Which of those stands out most to you? So Panthers, Falcons, Lions, Vikings, Eagles, Giants, Jets, Dolphins, Broncos, Bengals, and Texans.
So the one team that really stood out to me, I was going to go with the Texans, but I realized you play the Chiefs and the Ravens in the first 2 weeks. Almost any team would have been 0-2 playing against those teams. So I actually look at the Eagles. You lose week 1 to the Washington football team. Then you lose week 2 to the Rams, who, I mean, obviously you just said they're an improved team. What really worries me about them is I don't really know what options they have. I mean, they're financially committed to Carson Wentz, who looks terrible to start the season. There's no real cavalry coming. It's not, this team is not an Alshon Jeffrey away from being all of a sudden an elite offense. Their offense looks terrible. So
Yeah.
I'm just not sure. Is it just rust because they have a lot of young receivers? They obviously whiffed on Arcega-Whiteside last year. I just I don't know. I don't know what's going on with their offense. It looks terrible, and their defense, while it's good, is not good enough to make up for how bad their offense looks.
Yeah, the Eagles. I mean, they I don't know what the issue is. Alshon Jeffrey's hurt. I mean, Deshaun Jackson was good 10 years ago. Aside from that, it feels like Carson Wentz is throwing to like mannequins and furniture out there. Like it's just not a good situation. Truthfully, honestly, I think I said this in jest, kind of, but I kind of am starting to think it might be a real option for them. In that, I mean, they have Jalen Hurts sitting on the bench doing nothing, and I mean, Jalen Hurts is fast. He's like a 4.5 40 guy. So, but why not Taysom Hill at him and put him out and split him out? Let him be a slot receiver. I mean, I don't know if he can catch, but I mean, he's an athlete, and he might turn out to be the best receiver they have right now, aside from Zach Ertz and Goddard. But
Honestly, it's not a bad idea just to get him out on the field, start kind of just to use some of his athleticism, because whatever they're doing offense right now is not working.
No.
So, yeah, really, anything.
Out of this group, I think the Vikings being 0-2 stands out to me. I'm very surprised. I mean, they got smashed in the mouth by the Packers week 1. And then to lose to the Colts, I mean, the Colts lost to the Jaguars last week, and now the Colts come in and kind of just put a whooping on the Vikings. It's sort of like the Eagles. I can't really pinpoint what the issue is with the Vikings. I mean, Stephon Diggs is gone, but that's not.
When I was watching, I wasn't really watching that game closely, but I remember just kind of following the box score and like just how you can see the game cast. What did you give it? Why are you putting the ball in Kirk Cousins' hands so often? Give the ball to Dalvin Cook. Sometimes I just get, he's your best player. Like, stop throwing the ball so much. Go Cleveland, Baker Mayfield, run the ball over and over again, and then you throw from time to time. I just felt like they were trying to throw the ball way too often. Adam Thielen's a good receiver, but I think he's maybe slowing down a little bit. I don't know. He just doesn't seem to have that same number one wide receiver feel to me as he has in the last few years. So and also the really big thing is their defense is just nowhere near what anyone expected it to be. It's just bad. And the game was basically was over before it started yesterday against the Colts. I will say on the Jaguars though, they're probably better than we realize, because they actually gave the Titans a bit of a run. And the Titans aren't a great team, but they're certainly not a bad team. And they were very close to beating the Titans. So,
yeah, I mean, Gardner Minshew, I mean, that's going to be interesting to see if they ended up with the number 1 pick overall, what they're going to do. Because Minshew, I mean, for the weapons that he has, or lack thereof, I mean, he's doing pretty well. And I think that he's sort of throwing a monkey wrench in the plans of the Jaguars, because they gave away most of their team, in the offseason. So it's hard to see what they're trying to do. It feels like Minshew's kind of, maybe they get rid of him too. And they're just like, all right, here you go. Just give us a 4th round pick and we'll be out of your hair. So I want to throw in our stat of the week really quickly, and then we're going to take a break. So it is week 2, and a lot of people are say, okay, well, don't, it's only week 2. There's a lot of season left to play, which is true. But the stat of the week is there have only been 3 teams ever to start 0-2 and win the Super Bowl, which is pretty incredible. And that list, by the way, is the 2001 New England Patriots, the 2007 Giants, and the 93 Dallas Cowboys, which was mostly due to Emmitt Smith holding out those first 2 games and Jerry Jones promptly signing him, and then they went on to win the Super Bowl. So 3 teams ever to start 0-2 and win the Super Bowl.
Yep, 0-2 is a death sentence in the NFL.
Just about, yeah. But all right, we're going to switch gears. We're going to kind of take a break and come back. We have to talk NBA. There's a lot of playoff action going on, and we're down to the Final Four. So we're going to talk about that and more right after this on the Benchwarmerz podcast.
You can reduce your risk of COVID-19 by cleaning and disinfecting frequently touched items and surfaces every day. These items include remotes, tables, counters, light switches, doorknobs, handles, toilets, and sinks. Wear disposable gloves to clean and disinfect. If you can see that the item is dirty, wash first with soap and water or another general cleaner. Then use a household disinfectant to kill germs. Follow manufacturer's instructions for application and proper ventilation to safely use the product. For phones or other electronics, follow the manufacturer's instructions for cleaning and disinfecting. If no instructions, use alcohol-based wipes or sprays containing at least 70% alcohol. Dry surface thoroughly. For more tips, visit cdc.gov.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I'm Lou Ruggieri, that's Jose Ortiz, and this is still the Benchwarmers podcast. Appreciate you taking a little time to spend it with us. We went through quite the litany of NFL news and injuries in the first half of this hour. We're going to go back to the NFL next hour, but right now we have to talk NBA, and I guess we can start in the West, because that's I don't know which one of these series is more exciting, but the Lakers taking on the Denver Nuggets. The Lakers are up 2-0 thanks to a game-winning shot by Anthony Davis the other day. And I guess before we get into necessarily the Lakers-Denver, I mean, we still have yet to touch on sort of the Clippers collapse. And I wanted to, Jose, see your initial reaction to seeing the Clippers very prematurely end their season.
So I want to set the scene here and own up that we both dismissed the Nuggets very early on in this series. After they won, we were like, I don't even see a path to victory. And that was because on paper, the Clippers were by far the better team. They were one of the favorites to win the championship. And so I try not to be hyperbolic, but this is the worst collapse in American sports history, in my opinion.
No.
I really do. A lot of people have disagreed with me, and I've been saying it, and I'll keep saying it. And what makes it, and I'm just hear me out here. Mm-hmm. What makes this the worst collapse is because of when it happened. Okay, so for whatever reason, people assign it to be a bigger collapse if you collapse in the finals or you collapse in the Super Bowl or something. This was a team with with championship aspirations, up 3-1 against a team that had no Hall of Famers and had a player on it that is considered to be among the top 5 players in the game almost universally. When LeBron scored 17 points in the NBA Finals against them, probably 2011, he got killed. That was in Game 3 of the NBA Finals against 2 future Hall of Famers. Mm. Kawhi Leonard scored 14 points in Game 7 of a second-round series. Okay? A second-round series. You didn't even get to the Western Conference Finals. That's what makes this such a big collapse. It's not you were up 3-1 or you were up 3-1 or whatever. Because we've seen the Oklahoma City Thunder blow a 3-1 lead against the Golden State Warriors. Well, the Golden State Warriors are one of the best teams of all time. So I wouldn't consider that some major collapse. It was a collapse, but you got beat by a team that was clearly better than you and better than almost any other team in history. The Denver Nuggets are about to get swept by the Lakers, it looks like. Now, of course, they did come back from 2-3-1 down series, but we'll see. To have 0 points in the fourth quarter of Game 7 in the second round. The second round! You're supposed to be dominating right now.
Yeah, I couldn't. It's rare that I disagree this much, but so there's a couple, as far as even just basketball alone. We'll get to the rest of the sports in a second, but the Golden State Warriors, when they lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers, they were the greatest regular season team in history. They went 73-9. They broke Jordan's 72-10 regular season record. They were up 3-1 against the Cavaliers, and they would have been the best team in the history of the NBA if they had won that championship and completed that almost perfect season. And they just that's the magnitude of that is unfathomable. I mean, that was the greatest team, and to me, it sort of resonates and reminds me of the 07 Patriots. They were just this unstoppable force during the regular season, and then they come up against just a team that, these upstarts that no one gave a chance to, in the Giants, and it's a monumental collapse. And I understand that they didn't, you made it that far, so that's an accomplishment, but that's not good enough.
Yeah, that's fine, but what would have been worse is if those teams lost in the second round, right? If that 73-9 Golden State Warriors didn't even make it to the finals, that would have been a bigger collapse than losing 3-1 to maybe the second greatest player in the history of the game.
Do you think that Giannis losing this season in the second round is bigger? No,
I don't think it's bigger. I see where you're going, because you have to add in the being up 3-1 as well for the Clippers. I think what makes it a bigger collapse is that they had Kawhi Leonard. They had I don't even know, the antidote. I don't know what word to use. The secret weapon that you're supposed to be able to, win, and that he was going to, just like when he went to the Raptors, they became championship level. I looked, and maybe this is the issue. I looked at the Clippers as being clear favorites to win the championship. To get eliminated in the second round after up 3-1, and to have Pandemic P and Kawhi Leonard combined for 0 points in the fourth quarter, that's just terrible.
Yeah.
That's just terrible. Now, I can see where you're coming from and say, hey, the bigger the game, the bigger the collapse. I just think maybe the word is disappointment and not collapse. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I was shocked that Kawhi Leonard couldn't, it felt like he's built to take on that pressure and put it on his shoulders. Paul George, I mean, I think Paul George is a bit overrated, and I think that he's very up and down. And honestly, in that game, PG-13 should have been rated R because his game was scary bad. It was pathetic. He's hitting balls off the side of the backboard. I mean, you're in Game 7, dude. Come on, get it together, man. And there's one other team that came to mind. Well, there's two other teams that I thought of that might have been bigger collapses than the Clippers losing to the Nuggets. The first, and it pains me to say this, the Yankees losing to the Red Sox when they were up 3-1 in the ALCS back in 04.
3-0. They were up 3-0.
3-0. That's right. Yes. And so that comes to mind because that was that was a 100-year collapse, basically. Yeah. And then the other team that comes to mind are the 98 Vikings. And if you remember, that was Randy Moss's rookie year, and that was the year that Randall Cunningham, Chris Carter, Randy Moss, Rod Smith, and they went 15-1. And they lost to the Atlanta Falcons and Jamal Anderson and Chris Chandler.
You know what? That has been the best one you've given me so far. That, because I so remember those teams. And then there was also, I think there was a Packers team with Aaron Rodgers that was 15-1 a few years back and lost to the Giants. Yep. So that's kind of, you know what, that one right there, because that team was just so loaded. Oh my goodness, they were
just all pros all over the place.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Randall Cunningham was throwing bombs everywhere, and no one gave the Falcons a chance. No one. And then everybody was gearing up to see the Broncos play the Vikings in the Super Bowl, which would have been just a fireworks show. And then the Broncos just showed why they're better than the Falcons. And I don't think the Falcons really deserve to be there, but that's for another time. So that's the Clippers' loss. Now let's talk more. As of right now, the Lakers are up 2-0 on the Nuggets, and I feel like just watching these games, it just the Nuggets played better in game 2, but it just seems like, they're young, and LeBron is just, it feels like he's just on this mission, and I don't know that anything's going to stop him. Between him, Anthony Davis, and playoff Rondo, I think is quietly
playoff R
solidifying, sort of an arguable Hall of Fame career if they can get to another championship for him.
Yeah, he's going to try making his case to be the second Robert Horry or this really key part. Actually, he probably would be better than Robert Horry. I shouldn't even compare him that way. But either way, I'm getting sidetracked. Yeah, the Lakers are just beating up the teams they play. They're just bigger and stronger, and the thing that's really scary about it, they're just as fast as you. That's really what is messed up. The Nuggets are this finesse team, and the Lakers are just running right with them. And there's just really not much you can do. If a guy is bigger than you, stronger than you, and just as fast as you are,
you're not winning.
What advantage do you have?
That's the problem, is that they have, Jokic he's great, but Anthony Davis is better, I think, from top to bottom. I mean, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster.
Jokic also doesn't add anything on the defensive side of the game. He doesn't add anything defensively, and Anthony Davis is number 2 in Defensive Player of the Year voting this year. So.
And Jamal Murray, he's, half the time he's matched up against Kuzma or Rondo. They have no answer for LeBron James. They have no one that matches up with him.
Well, the thing that I've noticed about LeBron is that it just seems like he's almost in cruise control. I'm watching him the last few games, and he was, I guess he had the first 20 points in the first half of game 2, but then he kind of just put it in neutral, and it's like, he just, I was like, oh, you guys need me? Okay, let me step on the gas right now. It just seems like he's kind of in cruise control and letting the younger guys just carry him to a championship. And he's making good passes. He's playing, his defensive intensity has been great. But it just seems like offensively he's not forcing the issue at all.
And I think that's another kind of undervalued skill that Rondo brings to the table, is that he can be the facilitator and let LeBron sort of work off the ball and then attack in a different way than he's normally used to having to do. And that's, and take the pressure off him. It doesn't always have to be LeBron passing. So, he likes to facilitate, but let's face it. He's 6'9", 260. He's a force. Let him be a force. He's a great passer, but he's also an unbelievable scorer when he wants to be.
Yeah. At this point, I don't want to write off the Nuggets. I just feel like the only chance that, they've got to come out, they've got to hit more 3-pointers. That's their recipe to win, because the Lakers are not going to, they're not a prolific 3-point shooting team. They're a decent 3-point shooting team, but the Nuggets can just light it up from out beyond the arc, and they need to get hot again. And if they don't, they're not going to win this series.
I agree. On the other side, the East, the Celtics are battling the Heat. The Heat went up 2-0, and then the Celtics, after a tirade from Mark Smart, they got their act together and beat the Heat to force a win. So Miami's in the lead 2-1, and the Heat. It seems like they're doing this with smoke and mirrors. They're just. I feel like they're just winning based on just pure tenacity and grit, and just a never quit attitude, which is impressive. And Jimmy Butler is becoming a superstar in front of our eyes. And so is Bam Adebayo, for that matter.
Yeah. I still think the Celtics are the better team. Mm-hmm. I know that the Heat are up 2-1, but I think it's a lot kind of what you're saying. There's an urgency, a desperation that the Heat have when they play, that it doesn't feel like the Celtics always have. They have it at times, but it just feels like not always, and that they're kind of like, we're just a better team, and we're gonna rely on being a better team. And there's something about just being hungry and kind of a scrappy fighter. And I still think the Celtics are the better team. They have more weapons on offense. They should be pretty good on defense. I would expect the Celtics to come out and win Game 4 and really make this a series. But I do have one question for you. Mm-hmm. If you're the Lakers, which team would you rather face? Assuming the Lakers advance, we don't want to presume anything, but assuming they advance, which team would you rather face in the finals?
I don't know. I honestly, I think maybe the Celtics, because they're young. The Heat. Jimmy Butler is sort of a seasoned veteran who doesn't look like he doesn't crack under pressure. I mean, it's been proven how many times over and over again. He just comes through in the clutch. The Celtics are young. I think they're more talented than the Heat, top to bottom, especially now with Gordon Hayward back. He looks like he could make a real difference if he can. They just got to keep him duct taped together and make sure he doesn't hurt himself again. But I think the Celtics, I think they're more talented from top to bottom than the Lakers. I think that their perseverance, I think, could wane a lot quicker than Heat's.
Yeah, so I actually have the opposite feeling. I feel that, Celtics definitely more talented. I'm just looking at it as like usually the team with the best player wins, usually. And I feel like Heat versus Lakers, LeBron and AD are definitely number 1 and number 2 on the floor. I don't know if that's the case against the Celtics because we see that Jason Tatum is making his case for an NBA superstar. Yeah. I wonder if at some point the Magic could run out with the Heat, and then all they're left with is what talent they have. And I think, as you said, the Celtics are a more talented team, and maybe their ceiling is a little bit, or I don't know. It's splitting hairs but I think if I'm the Lakers, I'd rather play the Heat, and then as a basketball fan, I know you said you're rooting for Lakers Celtics. I'm rooting for Lakers Heat so I can see headlines: the King, the Return of the King. That's all it's going to be. Return of the King. We knew he'd be back, or there'd be a maze. He left here in 2014 or whatever year he left, and he's somehow still back in the finals facing us. It would be a tremendous a career arc to come back to Miami.
Yeah, I mean, but the problem there is that they have to get through the Nuggets first, and we've seen the Nuggets come back from pretty big deficits.
Worse than this. Yeah, we can't write the Nuggets off just yet.
So, all right, we got to take a break. We're going to come back in just a minute with hour number 2. So stick around. You can follow us along. Obviously, if you found us now, you know where to find us. But just in case you want to tell your friends, you can find us on the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Spotify, YouTube. All at the Benchwarmerz podcast, Benchwarmerz with a Z. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at the BW Pod, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and now on Amazon Podcasts, and very proudly so. So we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We have a lot of NFL talk to get to still. We still have to preview week 2 and then kind of touch on a few other things. So stick around, and we'll be right back on Benchwarmerz Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.